I'm thinking about that masculinity conversation, the masculinity crisis we were talking about. James, good to have you here again, mate. And this time, my wife told me off yesterday for not being more welcoming when you wrote, and it's because I'm a little bit autistic and a little bit blunt, and so I'm working. That's what I'm working on. I'm working on being more congenial when folks invest their time and come along. So I was told off. Um, I was talking about masculinity yesterday, and I said some things which would have left folks with something to meditate on. And then later today, I'm going live on YouTube. It would be about 2.5 hours, just over 2.5 hours from now, I think. I'm going live with, I will do, James. My wife's the same, she puts up with me. I might actually get them out here this morning to come and say Happy Easter to everyone. She's on the call, she just saw that actually. And so we were talking about masculinity, and I was talking about, and later on I'll be talking about Kali Yuga and about Easter. And one wouldn't automatically associate those three things together. But if you follow my work at all, you'll know that I'm much more interested in what the mythos, the stories, the archetypes, the tropes, and their symbolism have to teach us than picking any one strand of any faith or story and saying, oh yeah, you saw that on Facebook? James said he loved the picture of my family. Yeah, that was the other night at a dinner, in which my wife and I were actually talking about exactly the same thing. How does these ideas of masculinity and the soul, hey Jen, masculinity and the soul, and this idea of Kali Yuga, this idea that we're all collectively facing this kind of long dark night of the human soul, where everything that makes a golden age is very far away from the world. And all of those four pillars that can make a golden age, symbolically, they represent the four legs of a bull. The one is truth, the other one is austerity or discipline, but it doesn't mean rigid discipline. It means the way that we face our sense of duty in the world. The other one is purity. And again, it doesn't mean high-minded purity. It means the efforts that we take, the hygia that we practice in our home, the sanctity that we keep our places of mindfulness and devotion. It means the clarity of thought that we engender through practices like meditation. And the fourth one is compassion. So did I say them all? I said truth, purity, austerity, and compassion. And the premise, symbolically during the Kali Yuga, which I can see such a wonderful association with the Easter tradition. In the Easter tradition, this is now the death of the Christ figure who was now punished, almost scapegoated, even though they came here to help facilitate humanity as an example, so that we could reinvest in our relationship with the divine, the beyond, the universe, ourselves, whatever we want to call it. And then this person is now almost taken from the cross and then put into the tomb. And in that moment, that's when those four corners of Dharma, they are seen as legs of the bull. And it's almost as if the bull can only stand on one leg. Any one of us human beings can only occupy one of those corners in the modern world, because the modern world doesn't really, it's not like our society and our traditions and our cultures and our forms of engagement actually support lifestyles that be like that integrate all of those things. So the premise in the Kali Yuga is that Dharma can only stand on one leg. Only one of those things at a time can we occupy or can we embody, and even then it's difficult and complicated. So I see this wonderful relationship between the idea of the Kali Yuga and the idea of the Christ dying. Now, in ancient traditions, the egg was the symbol of the soul. And there was this idea that, I mean, I've written this somewhere else before. I might read it to you again. It said, soul needs to mean nothing more than the human thirst and capacity for connection and belonging, and the sense of purpose we can attach to the project of quenching that thirst and deepening that capacity in ourselves. Soul is the wellspring of our creativity and our imagination, and no less our vitality. Soul then is all of that by which we derive meaning in life. Now, if we can imagine, we give kids Easter eggs at Easter, and that's to bring through that symbolism of the soul, and very specifically a renewal, this death and rebirth. And then the whole idea of a Kali Yuga is, you'll notice it also is traced in an ellipse. It's not a circle, it's not a perfectly round cycle, because the short, deep, dark part of it is the shortest part, but it's also the furthest away, and it's the harshest curve to go through. And so it helps us reflect on these ideas of our own deaths and rebirths, because, like, I mean, if we ever mean to grow as people, by definition, you have to outgrow the version of the person you were before. If you mean to grow, you have to outgrow even the person that you were before, by definition, right? And so how these topics come home to me is through I expressed this in by way of a poem called My Father's Son. And this brings the idea of the archetype of Jesus through. It brings the idea of the soul through. It brings this question of masculinity in. Excuse me. It brings this question of masculinity in. And this is really just a reflection and a meditation for me on my stance on masculinity, which we spoke about yesterday. And this might be a little bit cryptic, but see what you get from this. It's called My Father's Son. I am my father's proud son. I am my father's proud son. I am his legacy. I have every reason to stand tall. I will not lower my eyes. I will not tread gently in the face of weakness. Now, just to be clear, I never knew my own father, actually, and I also never pined for one. I'm not a religious man, not out of laziness, but out of an unshakable sense of dignity. Every male role model that I ever encountered, I was disappointed to discover that they were ultimately weak or disingenuous. And I mean, I know that I'm not alone in that, because we reach for examples and models and heroes and idols. And we find so often our heroes are so deeply flawed because they're human beings. And they never stood up and said, follow me, I'm a leader. We follow them because they're celebrities or sports stars or something else, or intellectual heroes. But that doesn't mean that we don't live without this gap in our lives, because we didn't have the teachers, the male role models, the masculine leaders at work, the masculine leaders in our lives and in our communities that actually remained the kind of characters that we could go, wow, that's the kind of leader I want to become in my life. I've maybe met 2 people like that in my whole life, and I'm 50 years old. And I worked for 27 years in corporate. And I was untroubled by the example of masculine leadership that I could even remotely wanted to model myself on. So every male role model I ever encountered, I was disappointed to discover them ultimately to be weak or disingenuous. Perhaps the worst portrayal I encountered was via Christianity, for whom God is precisely a weak man's idea of a strong man. But the world works in a magical way, and enough essence of the father as an archetype is preserved in stories, and simply reading Rudyard Kipling's If you've ever read that, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you're looking for a good rendition, go and Google Michael Caine reading If. And he's just reading it quietly on a park bench, and it's very, very stirring, and it's a great message for anyone, a young man, and a man of any age, or anyone who's in relationship with men who are trying to find their way. Simply reading Rudyard Kipling's If gets us more than halfway there. So there is plenty to aim at in the world if you listen right. Now, for me, men like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, men like Carl Sagan, who taught us Cosmos, men like David Attenborough, who went around the world with this gentle disposition and wonder, trying to introduce everybody to the natural world. Men like that taught me more about nobility, leadership, and pure class than any sportsman, any celebrity, any politician, and certainly any business leader. Right? Simply by sitting in sacred conversation with a profound longing of what I was searching for so earnestly in the world. And it wasn't a daddy. It was knowing that this ideal that I had in my heart about masculinity and leadership wasn't something that lived only in me. I didn't want to carry that whole cross. I wanted to know that this was a signal that was alive and resounding in the world, right? Simply by sitting in sacred conversation with the profound longing of what I was searching for so earnestly in the world and could not find anywhere, taught me more about what it means to be a man than any podcast bro or internet alpha male ever could hope to stand in the shadow of. I am who I am today, not because of great direct example, but rather despite the poor examples which I refused to accept. I live with the question of what it means to be a husband, a father, a leader, a man, just a man in this world, because it is my authentic calling to do so. There is no outer voice. There's no outer voice of reproval or condemnation that will make me feel ashamed for how I feel in my heart. I'm simply my own self. And this is where this piece came from. So it begins, I am my father's proud son. Now I'm speaking here to the archetypal father, not some daddy in heaven and not some father that I was pining for either. I am my father's proud son. I am his legacy. I have every reason to stand tall. I will not lower my eyes. I will not tread gently in the face of weakness. I am my father's noble son. I am his promise to the world. I choose to honor him. I will honor vulnerability, no less mine own, and treat it with courage and care. I pledge to no man except my brothers, and to no woman except my sisters and my wife. I will live for my children. I will live for my father, for my neighbors on this earth I will live, and treat you how I would wish to be treated if the boot sat wholly on the other foot. That's the golden rule, right? I am my father's bright son. I am my father's bright son. My heart is like a God-shaped hole that burns like the heart of the world. My heart is like a God-shaped hole that burns like the heart of the world. My mind is like no other. My mind is like no other. We are all configured and wired uniquely in this world. We all have individual perspectives. That's what relativity means. I am my father's bright son. My heart is a God-shaped hole that burns like the heart of the world. My mind is like no other, no other. Bright and canny and quick. And my purpose, as is yours, laid out before us. My purpose, as is yours, laid out before us. Our purpose gets laid out before us based on the time and the moment that we arrive in this life. And I don't mean just at birth. I mean day by day, we're kind of arriving. If you're living a growth mindset and you're trying to become something in this world and you're trying to fit in and help steer this sad mess that's unfolding. If you want to live with the idea that says, let mine be the hand that reaches down, let mine be the lamp that lights the way, we don't have to be superheroes to do that. We can do it just in the small ways that we encounter people in our lives and mend the holes, as I've said before, mend the holes that we encounter along the way. We don't all have to hold all four legs of that Dharma, of the purity and the truth and the compassion and the austerity. We just have to get into community and decide who amongst us can hold one if I can hold the other, or I can hold a little bit of each. And that's the power of community. We get together with other people and we start making these kind of social contracts, covenants, not with a God, not with deities, but with humanity, with the inheritance that we get, because we're all standing on the top, on the shoulders of giants here. And then somebody else is going to inherit our leavings. Those who are yet to open their eyes to the world are going to inherit the net effect of our courage and our willingness to show some form of leadership in this world. I am my Father's bright sun. My heart is a God-shaped hole that burns like the heart of the world. My mind is like no other, bright and canny and quick, and my purpose, as is yours, laid out before us. I am my Father's proud son. I will not sully his name. I will not squander his legacy. I will not be pressed to say yes. I will not be pressed to say yes. I will not be pressed to agree and just toe the line and toe the left party line or the right party line, or toe the woke party line or the cynical party line. I will not be pressed to say yes. And I will not be silenced. I will not be silenced by threat of shame. I am that. And when I forget who I am, I follow the way. And when I remember who I am, the way and I are the same. And that to me is a kind of poetic distillation of everything that I mean to say about masculinity, everything that I mean to say about these death and rebirth cycles that we need to observe, and everything that I need to say about the reality of this this sort of golden structure that we call Dharma, this righteousness that we want to be in relationship within the world, not in a naive way, but imagine of all the things that human beings could be doing with our lives. We're all doing something anyway. We order our neighborhoods with streets and grids. The trash man comes and picks up the garbage on a Monday. We organized our plumbing and our sewage. We organize, we create our lives. There's nothing technological stopping us from creating institutions and the shape of our lives and traditions in such a way that make it easier for us to integrate truth, compassion, that sense of virtuous duty to each other and to ourselves, and a kind of spiritual hygiene or mental health hygiene, that kind of purity and sanity in the world. If we build them into our institutions and into our habits in our life, actually our practices and our traditions carry us. That's the plan. But the ugliness and the coldness and the reductionist individuating that is happening in the world is making that harder and harder and harder for people. And that is exactly why we are facing what feels like a Kali Yuga, a long, dark, miserable night of the human soul. Because it's so fucking hard for anyone to hold all of that space impossibly at the moment. So what is Easter for me? Partially, it's about seeing the joy on our child's face when we give her an Easter treasure hunt and Easter eggs. But what am I connecting to? I'm connecting to this idea that cycles of death and rebirth are inevitable. And I would rather, it's almost like the current moment in the world is like a fireplace that we've just, no one stoked it, no one cleared the ash away, no one cleaned it. We just kept piling more and more and more and more and more shit on. And now it's choked with ash and it can't breathe. And no amount of stoking can get it back to life again. We actually, the smart thing to do here is to just leave it alone. It's the only thing you can actually do. Just let the fire go out. Time to go sleep, right? Time to go sleep. Time to go sleep. I wrote something about that. Let's see if I can. It says the fire burning low. The old fire is burned down low. And the colder it became, The colder it became outside, the wilder the wind howled and tugged at the loose edges of your refuge, the more you fed all the fuel you could find and simply kept piling it on to coax some warmth and light into your living room. This is my living room. The house of my soul, basically. And all of this is metaphorical, right? Not literal. All of this is metaphorical. It's symbolic, not literal. The good wood ran out some time back until it was down to dry sticks and kindling, so that you reached for whatever you could find. This is the heart of our binge scrolling and our binge watching and our addictions. The good wood ran out some time back until it was down to dry sticks and kindling, so that you reached for whatever you could find. But now you cannot even add more fuel, because the ash lies too deep, the living room thick with smoke, and the struggling embers cannot breathe. And no amount of earnest stoking can coax the fire back to health. Everybody is so desperately, those who are called to leadership are trying to instill hope and action into the world, but everyone's just fatigued and cynical and exhausted and tired and scared. People are scared now. No amount of earnest stoking can coax the fire back to health. Sometimes you go too far around the horn and you actually just have to keep going. It's time to sleep now. Time to sleep. Let this be tomorrow's question. Let the fire go out. Let the fire go out. Let the air rest. Let the stones remember their old coldness. And let the old hearth of your body, remember again its sacred fire. When you wake up in the morning, you can be sure of one thing. This is a new day, and everything in it is waiting for you to arrive. Death and rebirth, the Irish say that death is the middle of a very long life. And Michael Meade, he's an American custodian of folk tales and mythos, and that's the way he teaches. And he explains that destruction and creation are actually co-present. And that's really, for me, what the symbol of the egg and the soul in Easter is all about. And if we're going through a masculinity crisis, there's something almost that's dying at this moment. Our old idea of what the masculine is and should be and could be, I mean, that is completely unsustainable. It's so distorted, it's so perverted, it's so cynical and sick. I'd actually be glad to see that die, even though it'll become, it's in the dark night when things are dead and everybody's sitting with uncertainty and you don't know when the dawn is going to come, that people suddenly start finding something inside of themselves again. They suddenly start caring about what matters in the world. And the only utility for such things as this metaphoric death of Christ and going into the tomb is for the prospect of renewal, is for the prospect of encountering that long dark night of the soul, having that reckoning, having that internal conversation, reaching for something beyond yourself, and then also reaching for something inside yourself, so that it can, the best way to break an egg is from the inside. The best way to break an egg is from the inside. Like whatever needs to hatch out of that moment and find its way into the world new and full of promise and full of potential. That's why the egg is the symbol of that, yeah? And for me, that is so closely tied to this idea of masculinity because I see it as as an ideal in the world. It's so harmed, so dead, so ill. It's actually better to let that fire go out and better for us to sleep on it and just be cold for a night and let the fireplace go cold, because once the fireplace has gone cold, that's when we can actually clear out the old ash, clear out the old firewood, sweep it clean, yeah? And then go and give some new thought to how we want to gather the right kind of fuel for that. I'm talking about the right kind of psychological and spiritual fuel for our new fire that we want to start in the morning. and how we want to kindle that fire more mindfully this time, and how we want to tend that fire more mindfully, and how we want to sometimes just sit by that fire and reflect back. Maybe not in such a desperate, long, dark night of the soul, but in these moments of quiet reflection that will also come in our cycles. So that's what's all going through my head today. Yeah, unless there's any comments or questions. Hey, don't forget, if you comment, if you like this little video here, hitting that heart, saying something of meaning. It's not that I'm hungry for meaning. It's that the algorithm, this infernal machine that we have ceded our control to, that we're worshipping in some way. People are actually writing now, dear algorithm, please do this for me. Dear algorithm, please do that for me. That is what prayer sounds like, which means we're now praying to something undead. That's a little bit creepy, right? But that's what we're doing, and which means the algorithm has become our unholy, undead deity that we are allowing to just control our lives, and we are now making petitions to this God. It's deeply unwell. But if you comment, like, subscribe, you do you do all the things that you can help to boost these kind of signals, I'll appreciate it, and the rest of the world will appreciate it. And then it won't just be us five intrepid souls, fighting the good fight here. Anyhow, I've got a message here. What does it say? James, I am my father's son. Yeah, James has written something. I am my father's son, strong of spirit more than body. I am my mother's son, enduring and optimistic despite the challenges or the salving joys of life. I am my parents' son who learns and adapts as situations arise, but always committed to run the race in loving dedication to one another and fulfilling this precious gift, being alive and conscious, attending to the four pillars of Dharma. You found your calling as a poet there, James. I think you, if ever I had to give you a prize for coherence and resonance, it would be when you speak this way. Let's have more of that, yeah? All right, everybody. In about 2.5 hours, I'll be going live with Chetan, and I'll unpack this in a slightly more coherent and spacious way. But for what it's worth, wherever you are in the world and however you reflect on such ideas of death and rebirth and the soul and masculinity and leadership and Dharma, you now know what I mean when I say Happy Easter. And that's what I wish for all of you. So have a kick-ass day. And thank you, James. Have a kick-ass day, and I'll see you here tomorrow for day 10. Day 10 is a special day, numerologically. It's when we're at the end of a cycle and we click over into a new one. So let's see what comes from that. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for spending time with me this morning in this absolutely stunning little Perth morning. And I'm going to go hang out with my family and scoff some breakfast and enjoy my kiddo. And I'll see you guys later. Much love. Take care.